Now we have been doing all the enumeration using a command line tool, either Power View, or we could have used the AD module. There are a few more tools out there that can be used. However, a tool that changed how we look at attack paths is, of course, a BloodHound. So those of you who are not aware of BloodHound, it is a tool that can be used that provides a GUI, a GUI for different entities in Active Directory. It is easier to visualize relationships when you have a graph. The famous quote that defenders think in lists and attacker thinks in graphs, that can be actually, that applies very well to BloodHound. So using BloodHound, you can actually map attack paths. Like if you have compromised a user, is there a way for that user to go to domain admins? It is that easy with BloodHound. So the way BloodHound works is it captures sort of a snapshot of the current state of Active Directory sessions, users, groups, ACLs, and whatnot, and then maps it using graph theory. You can use graph theory to find paths, shortest paths, and so on. BloodHound is very useful for blue teams and penetration testers. Similar tools are Purple Knight and Pink Castle, of course. For red teamers, I would say avoid BloodHound unless you absolutely know what you're doing. Why? Let me start with the MDI dashboard that we have access to. So you would see that here. This one, the alerts in last 1 week, user and IP address reconnaissance, security principal reconnaissance. The third one, Active Directory attributes and Active Directory attributes reconnaissance. These 5 alerts are because of BloodHound. So it's not BloodHound's problem, to be honest. It is the way you collect data. If you use a tool that gathers so much information, even if it is only, let's say, from the DC, if you use it without understanding how it works, you are going to get detected. These two, the ones that I've not highlighted yet, that is for the AS wrap roasting attack, which of course you can avoid. We'll talk about it later. So what happens? Let's see how BloodHound works first. So you need to run collectors or ingesters for BloodHound. BloodHound now has 2 free versions other than a paid one, that is BloodHound Enterprise. You have the legacy BloodHound, and then there is BloodHound CE, or the community edition. BloodHound Legacy is present in the CAD tools directory of your student VM. It is set up there. For BloodHound CE, it is a resource hog. It needs a lot of RAM. So we could not provide each one of you a dedicated instance of BloodHound CE. So you have read-only access to a shared version of BloodHound CE, where you cannot upload the data, but you can take a look at the data, run cipher queries, analyze it, and so on. The way it works is you first need to collect data, then supply it to BloodHound Legacy or to BloodHound CE, depending on what you're using. Once the data is there, you can go ahead and start analyzing it. Okay, so let me first show you how this works. So once you log into the BloodHound UI, you hit this app proxy URL, login using the same credentials that you use to log in. Okay, give me a moment. You need to use these credentials. I've showed you them, but let me explain that again. So this is the URL that we accessed, and these are the credentials. It is a shared BloodHound. It is a shared account that we have. In case of too many invalid attempts. It may get locked out for a couple of hours. It is fine. It is fine. Take a look at what I'm explaining here. So BloodHound allows for a lot of things. For example, let's say I want to take a look at, for example, student 1 here. We would like to check if we have, let's say, local admin privileges anywhere. Doesn't look like that. Who all have access on this? So we can say, let's say domain admins have full control and owns user. We can check it the other way around as well. What all objects student 1 has access to. Student 1 is a member of a group called RDP users that has access on multiple number of objects. We can also use cipher queries, of course. There are a lot of built-in ones. For example, let's say you want to check who all are the domain admins. There are 2 domain admins. What are the domain trusts? These are the trusts. $Corp has a trust relationship with Money Corp, US, and an external trust, Eurocorp. Let's say who are the principals that have DC sync privileges. So when this was captured, student 2 in the lab instance that we have here, student 2 had those privileges. Other than that, domain admins, administrators, and this one. And so on. For example, if you would like to check for all Kerberos stable users, there are 3 users that are Kerberos stable. So spend some time here. If you look for shortest path to domain admins, how can you get to domain admin? So the shortest path to domain admin, according to BloodHound, or the data that BloodHound has, is using this path. All the student users, because they are member of RDP users, have generic all on app lock policy that contains the machine dcorp admin SRV. And dcorp admin SRV has constrained delegation on dcorp DC. That means that if we can compromise dcorp admin SRV, we can actually compromise dcorp DC. That is the domain controller. Okay. So you could see, try to, I mean, of course, then you can, if you can write your own queries, you can find even more interesting things. So this is how BloodHound helps. You can visualize it better so you can understand it better. However, it should come as no surprise that if you are collecting that much data, that means that there would be some detection. And as we saw, there is a lot more than just some detection. There are multiple alerts. And they just one tool, only the MDI, Microsoft Defender for Identity. So if you use collection methods all, that is, you want to use all the collectors, excuse me, you want to use all the collectors when running BloodHound, then it is going to be a problem. How can we make it a bit more stealthy? We can remove some noisy collection methods, or we can specifically go for these collection methods. We are avoiding local admin collection, RDP, DCOM, PS remote. So we go for only these and we exclude DCs. So what identity protection tools don't like is, for example, user and IP address reconnaissance. If we take a look at this one, a user CI admin on dcorp CI enumerated SMB session on dcorp DC. The only thing that MDI is complaining about is enumeration of assembly sessions on decop DC, not any other machine. Session enumeration. So that is why it makes sense to exclude DC from any of these enumeration techniques. That is no file share enumeration, no session enumeration on the DC. Everything else, of course, comes from the DC. The list of users, ACLs, groups, computers, everything comes from the DC. So request only that from the DC, but avoid listing sessions and shares, etc. from the DC. That is going to get you detected. That can be achieved using this one. Here you would see that we're only asking for group, GPU local group. Session, to be honest, is hit and miss, could be noisy, may not be noisy. Trusts, ACL, container, object props, SPN targets, search services. Mostly innocent information. Right? What is the connection made to? What is the request? What is used to make these requests? LDAP. Then you have another even more stealthier option, that is SOAPHound. Now, SOAPHound does not talks to ADDS, it talks to ADWS, Active Directory Web Services. Now, if ADWS, that is port 9389, is open, in place of sending LDAP queries, you can talk to the ADWS. This is the same thing that the AD module uses. All right, so this means that there is almost no network-based detection like MDI. The way the tool works is it requests information about all the objects like this. This means limited number of LDAP queries. Once again, this means less chance of endpoint detection as well. The way we can use SOAPHound is you build information about basic information about the domain objects, you build a cache, and then collect the BloodHound compatible data. In the lab, you can try SOAPHound as well, collect it, and then you can upload it to the BloodHound legacy. All right, this brings us to learning objective 1. Any question on BloodHound or SOAPHound? How important is BloodHound for the course? You can do the entire course without using BloodHound. As you would see, I would do a lot of enumeration using PowerView as well. So for the course, you can do it almost all of it without BloodHound. Uh, are there any, which one to use, SOAPHound or BloodHound? Depends entirely on how silent you want to be. Do not use SOAPHound if your target environment is not mature. Go for BloodHound. It would be easier, would provide you a lot more information. That is SharpHound, BloodHound's ingester. If you are executing an actual red team operation where silence is or detection, not getting detected is a top priority, then go for SOAPHound. So both allow you to analyze data. SharpHound, that is BloodHound's built-in ingester, or that what comes with it, could be a bit more noisy. SOAPHound is less noisy. A question is, what is a good amount of hours needed to pass this course? Depends a lot on what your existing experience is. It could be 1 hour every day. It could be more than that. A lot of people do uh, brute force their way over the weekends. Then 4 or 5 hours every weekend. It depends on how aligned your existing skills are. But at least 1 hour a day is what I would suggest. If you do not have a full-time job. If you do have it, then probably a couple of hours on the weekend, on each of the weekends. BloodHound CE versus Legacy, which one is better? In terms of UI, of course, BloodHound CE, and that is the one that is going to receive updates. So BloodHound CE always. I mean, if you are setting it up in the lab, you cannot upload data to BloodHound CE. So go for BloodHound CE, that is going to be actively maintained. The port is open, usually, I mean, it opens up by default. In some cases, it might be blocked by host-based firewall. So that's that. There is no other difference. A question is, if we exclude DCs like this, what data will we get about the AD? Everything other than session enumeration and IP address from the DCs, something that MDA specifically does not like. So you can freely use it, doesn't miss on any important data. Exclude DCs simply means SMB and session enumeration shall not be done on the DCs.